here, and it's time for a video that many of you have requested, and that is the Welsh Language Alphabet. Gwyddor y Gymraeg. Gwyddor y Gymraeg. The Welsh Language Alphabet. So this shouldn't be too long, and it's a basic one that I think was needed for this channel to be in the catalog for people to look back on. So let's get started with the content for you. The first letter. Oh, let's just briefly support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee. The first letter is A. A vowel. This is never pronounced like in make in English. It's always A, clear and simple. Sometimes you get an accent, an acen over it, or a toe bach, a little roof. It just means that it's longer. Ah. It's still the same sound, really just elongated. Ah. Right, let's move on to the next one. Ba. Bwyd, food. Just like in English. So there's nothing really to explain there. So the next one is ek. That's what you might know as C. Now this is always hard. K. Never like in France. S. No. So cor, choir. Cor, choir. So that one's easy. The next one is not a sound that's really found in English. Ch. This is in fact in hundreds, if not thousands of languages around the world. It's very common across all the Celtic languages. Variations of it in Germanic languages and the Semitic languages have it. This is really common around the world. So ch, chwilen. Chwilen is beetle, like the little creature. Chwilen. Okay? It's a bit back. Ch, right? But once you get it, you'll see how basic this sound is. Let's move on to the next letter. D. Just like in English, D. Dol means meadow. Like a meadow, a wild field, or a clearing bit in a forest. Dol. A long O. But the D is as you would expect in English. Da. Adelin. The harp. Adelin. Telin is actually with a T beginning, but the mutates it, and it's one of the very few ones ending in YN that is feminine. So next letter is double D, one of those two letters in one, as you would think of in English, again, like cha. But this one's a bit different because it isn't going to be found at the beginning of a word. And if you see it at the beginning of a word, you know it's a mutation. So how does it sound? Th. So in English you have TH, and in English this could be the TH in feather or with. Those are two separate sounds in Welsh with two distinct letters to express them. You can't confuse the two because it's important when it comes to mutations. So, heave, like a stag. Regal with horns and a robust chest. Heave. This double D is found a lot at the end of words or in the middle between vowels. So just remember that with TH and double D. We'll run into TH later. And the next one. E, or in Welsh, is never pronounced E. It's always or a longer sound. So enw means name. F sounds like a V. V. And traditionally this was something that was never at the beginning of words in Welsh, older Welsh. But gradually there were things that began to change. And even some of the older words in Welsh that begin with this V sound means that there was something before it a long time ago that got lost. Today we have loan words from English, so if you see the beginning of a word just with F, it's either a very old mutation or a loan word from English or French, like violin. In older Welsh, this would have been gwylin. Next one, double F, two Fs, this sounds like an F in English. So F like a V, double F like F. Fedog, fedog like an apron, fedog. So that's pretty easy. Next one. G is always G, G. It's always hard. It's never like you have it in French or Romanian or other languages with different sounds. It's always hard. G, gaver, gaver, goat, gaver. The next one, ng. So this one's a bit difficult. So, kangen, it's never like finger. It's more like song. So finger is two different sounds. It's more compressed than that. Song. Kangen, a tree branch. Kangen. You'll get it. Let's move on to the next one. H is always pronounced ha. I know several Romance languages that may be a bit difficult, but it's always ha. Hen. Hen is old. It's a very simple sound. Ha. Hen, old. And I, ivank, is I. Ivank means young. Ivank. I is pronounced E. Never like in English I. Never like that. E is the same sound. Sometimes you get it's longer E, or you'll see a double dot over it. That means that it's just separating it from the next vowel. Skio, to ski on snow. The next one, L. Now, Erstolum, a while ago, or actually more than that, in ancient times, this letter never really came at the beginning of words. It was always double L, which will be the next letter. But L, when you see words that begin only with this, one of two things is happening. It's either a mutation from a double L word, or it's a more recent addition to the language that has been loaned in from French or English. I wish we would double L at the beginning of words for these words, but we don't always. So let's give an example. Allow, allow, tune, melody. It's just like in English. The next one, double L, the infamous double L. Now, lots of languages have this actually. Icelandic has a version of it that's a bit softer. Tibetan languages have it. Several language groups in the Americas and Africa have it. It's not that uncommon in the world. It's just in Europe, it's a bit more uncommon. So, there's several ways to explain how this sounds, but llaeth, llefrith. This is a point between the letter H and the letter L with a bit of breath between it. In fact, in the older orthographies, sometimes this was written HL. Okay, I wish it was actually written that way. And not really. If I was going to create a Welsh alphabet, I would use the Polish L, which is not an L in Polish, to represent this, so that there's a breath through the L. Llaeth is milk. Llefrith, now there are milk wars in Wales. There are milk wars. There's two different words for milk. I use llaeth, but for me, llefrith means the milk that just comes straight out of the cow, non-pasteurized, just before anything happens to it. But yeah, you just have to learn this one. Menin, butter. The letter M is just like in English, and you'd be surprised actually how much we use this letter. Menywod, women. Manaman, might as well. Manaman. So it's just like in English, no problem. Let's move on to the next one. N, just like in English. Nos is night. Nos. No big deal. Let's move on to the next one. O. O in Welsh is a bit like the Spanish O. It's always rounded, it's clear, it's never like in English odd. No. O. It's always O. Odin. Odin is a kiln, Like you put pottery and bricks in to help harden and keep. Odin. P is always like in English, so that's easy. But an example, porfor is purple. Now there are dialectical words for purple across Wales, so there's puce is one, but I think porfor is a bit more regal and noble, and I like it, so I use that one. Porfor. PH. Yes, in Welsh, it's one letter. It's pronounced f. Wait a minute, Benjamin. Didn't you say that F was f? Yes. Both of these letters have the same sound. PH is special, and you're only going to find it in two specific places in the language when you see it or hear it. And it's going to tell you a lot about the language, so that's why it's important. But the first example is showing you that there's a mutation going on. So here's an example. Esir llyn gyda fisgotor. I went to the lake with a fisherman. Gyda fisgotor. Notice the mutation. It would be pisgotor, a fisherman, without that. The second one is before 1900, let's say, before that era. PH was very common in the middle of words, so like gorfuis is rest, like the rest you get, and it would often be spelled gorfuis with PH instead of double F as it is today. So it's a marker actually. It suggests an older version of Welsh. I think that's nice. It has a tink of the old-fashioned, and it's easy to conjure that up in Welsh by just slipping in a PH if you want a bit of time periodness. R, a trilling at the top of the mouth with the tongue. R. It's closest in some senses to the Spanish R, but this one is more forward in the mouth. This also is never really at the beginning of the word if there's not a mutation going on. So it's usually between two vowels, frankly, not always. So bara means bread. That's one you might need. But we have two R's actually in Welsh. RH, the next letter. Yes, we have two R's. Rhaid is a need, a must, sometimes a lack. Mae rhaid gen I fynd i'r siop. Mae rhaid gen I fynd i'r siop. Mae rhaid gen I fynd i'r siop. Literally, there is a need with me to go to the shop. R. And RH is usually how words will begin in Welsh if they have any kind of R without any mutation. Okay? There's just sound norms in the language. The next letter, S. Just like in English. Seethe. Juice. Seethe. T. Tawel. Quiet. Tawelwch. Quietness. Just like in English. So, no explanation needed. Let's move on. TH. That second th sound. Brath. A bite. Brath. This one's interesting because you will only see it at the beginnings of words in two instances. So mutations, mama thad, mother and father. Notice the th, ath. That's a mutation. Shows you that there's a mutation going on. The second instance is loan words from Greek or through English from Greek. Theory. Theocratiaeth. What is that in English? Theocracy. But in both of these cases, these TH words that have been borrowed in, we have our own words. Demceniaeth. That has a TH at the end. Demceniaeth. And for theocracy, we have diwylwodraeth. And again, TH is at the end. Not like in feather, but in plinth and with. A very airy. This letter in Welsh is called e-bedol. E-bedol, because it looks like a pedal a horseshoe. This E bedol exists on a spectrum of sound, from sounding just like E, 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 E. All of those pronunciations, depending on different accents across Wales, are valid. And the E is very much in the northwest, and it fades. It used to exist as well in the far southeast, but it's been lost. Hopefully it will return. That's my opinion. But you don't have to pronounce it E if you don't want to. I add a bit of northern tang and sweetness with it. E. I don't go the full E, but I do add a bit of sweet and sour. E. So let's give one example. Egan. Egan. Notice there's a bit of tang at the beginning. Egan. Okay, next one. W. This letter confused me for a long time whilst I was learning. So, ui. It's pronounced oo. But you can add an accent on it. Soon. Or guith. For goose, guith. But sometimes it's half swallowed up. Glod. It's a faint, it adds a slight breath of air almost between the G and the L. Glod. The word for empty. Gwog. Gwog. I challenge you, how many words in English can you even think of that have the gwa combination that do not come from Cornish or Welsh? And the next letter, Y, I made a video just for this letter, okay? But in brief, this letter has two main sounds with some variations. So, tawisog, prince, tawis, e. So the second one is an E. The first one is more empty, tawisog. But then you get single consonant words like mend, to go. That's the alphabet. Did you like this video? Let me know in the comments. Support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee. And watch this video here to learn more about the alphabet.